We're going to dive into a really deep and, honestly, an ancient idea today. It's this concept of a fundamental human need for a guide. Someone or something that gives us not just direction, but meaning for our entire existence. They call it the pillar of being. You know, at the end of the day, this is the question, isn't it? We can build these incredible cities, we can map out the entire human genome, but deep down, this fundamental question mark, it never really goes away. It's a question that just echoes through time, inside every single one of us. And that one question breaks down into these big three. What's the right thing to do? Why am I even here in the first place? And who on earth can show me the path? These aren't just, questions for a philosophy class. They're the real things we wrestle with when we're at a crossroads or just lying awake at night wondering what it's all about. So for an answer, let's turn to a central text, the Quran, because the way it frames this search is fascinating. It's not just about finding a path, it's about defining our very identity.
This verse is pivotal. It translates to something like, on the day when we will call every people with their Imam. Now think about that for a second. It suggests that when it all comes down to it, you won't be called by your name or your job or your nationality. You'll be called by your Imam, by your guide.
And that just completely reframes the whole thing, right? The Imam isn't just some leader you decide to follow. In this view, the Imam you choose becomes your identity. They represent the direction your life took and, well, the final destination you're headed for.
So the takeaway is pretty clear. A life without that kind of guidance is seen as fundamentally incomplete. It's like you're a traveler, ready and eager to go on a journey, but you've been given no map. You have all this potential, but ultimately, you're just lost. Okay, so now let's zoom out. We're going to take this idea from a personal need, me needing a map, to a cosmic necessity. The idea that this guide is essential not just for us, but for the entire world. Now that is a powerful, almost shocking statement. The hujjat here means the divine proof. And this isn't meant to be taken as some kind of literal earthquake. It's pointing to a profound metaphysical idea that the very existence of this divine proof on earth is what gives the world its spiritual and moral balance. And this visualizes that idea perfectly. The guide acts as a sort of spiritual center of gravity for humanity. Their presence, even if you can't see it, provides this fundamental order, preventing everything from just collapsing into moral and spiritual chaos. Okay, but that brings up a huge and pretty obvious question, right? How can a guide be a pillar holding up the world if they're hidden? If you can't see them or hear from them directly, how can they possibly have an effect on anything? Well, to answer that exact question, Islamic tradition offers this really beautiful and famous metaphor. It's a simple image, but it's used to explain a really complex idea about how someone can be present and influential even when they're out of sight. This analogy is really the key. Think about it. On a cloudy day, you can't see the sun directly, right? But you still feel its heat. You know its light is what's keeping everything alive. Its existence is undeniable because you see its effects everywhere. The idea here is that the hidden Imam works the same way. His spiritual guidance and presence are felt, sustaining spiritual life, even if he himself is unseen. All right, let's bring this down from the cosmic and theological to something more personal, more psychological. Is there an actual, innate, human need for a figure like this in our world today? I mean, just think about our world. We are constantly bombarded with the mistakes and failings of our leaders, the flaws in every ideology. It seems like there's this deep, almost primal human yearning for a true ideal, a perfect example to look up to, someone who actually embodies the virtues we all aspire to. So what would that perfect model look like? Well, they'd have to be completely incorruptible, right? Untouched by the normal temptations of power and politics. A person who exists for one reason and one reason only, the good of humanity. Someone with a perfect grasp on knowledge, morality, and justice. It's an ideal that stands in such sharp contrast to what we see every day. But this whole concept isn't just about logic and philosophy. It's also described as something deeply personal, deeply emotional. It's about finding a safe harbor for your soul. We all have those moments, don't we, when the world just feels heavy. The injustice, the noise, the constant pressure, it just feels exhausting. And in those moments, we all search for some kind of refuge, a place where we can feel totally safe, totally at peace, a spiritual anchor where we feel completely and totally understood. The promise of this belief is that such a refuge actually exists. A guide who gets every struggle, who understands every tear, and who offers that support without any conditions, no strings attached.
And that ultimate refuge, that unconditional source of trust and understanding, is the Imam, the guide who is believed to be there precisely for these moments of profound human need. So, in the end, the divine guide isn't presented as just an optional belief or a nice idea. It's framed as a total necessity for life, a necessity for meaning, like a compass when you're lost at sea, a necessity for clarity, like a light in total darkness, and a necessity for our very spiritual existence, like oxygen for the soul. And so, we don't end with an answer, but with a prayer. It's a plea to know, a plea for recognition, which tells you that the search is ongoing. It leaves us with the thought that maybe the journey to find our guide is the most important journey we could ever take. Thanks so much for joining me in this exploration.